Welcome back to The Explainer. We are jumping right into a really profound moment in history today. Picture this. It's literally just 2 weeks after the greatest, most peaceful triumph in Islamic history. We're talking about the conquest of Mecca. The city has been secured, totally without bloodshed. A general amnesty has just astonished the world. And honestly, they've reached the absolute highest point of material success. But as we'll see, it's exactly at this pinnacle of victory that the greatest test of pride shows up.
So check out this declaration from the marching Muslim army. We will not be defeated today because of small numbers. Wow, the dramatic irony here is just immense, isn't it? They were looking around at their massive ranks, feeling, well, pretty much invincible. But Surah At-Tawbah actually diagnosed this exact mindset as a fatal flaw. The Quran points out that they were pleased by their huge numbers, marking this incredibly dangerous, unprecedented moment of pride. Their confidence had subtly shifted away from a higher power and landed squarely on their own material strength.
12,000. Now, to put that into perspective, this wasn't just a big group. This was the single largest Muslim army ever assembled in history up to that exact point. You've got the battle-hardened veterans of Badr and Uhud marching shoulder to shoulder with thousands of newly converted Meccans. They are totally energized. They're marching out of Mecca with absolute 100% confidence. They literally believed that with a staggering 12,000 warriors, they were mathematically unbeatable.
But opposing them was the Hawazin Confederation, led by a man named Malik ibn Auf. Now, Malik was tactically brilliant. He positioned his men in the narrow, steep, rocky walls of the Hunayn Valley, setting up a perfectly laid pre-dawn ambush. He knew this terrain would basically compress that massive Muslim army and totally neutralize their numbers advantage. However, he also made a catastrophic strategic blunder. He brought the entire tribe's families, the women, the children, and even the livestock right to the battlefield. He completely ignored the warnings of a wise, blind elder named Duraib, thinking that having their families literally right behind them would force his warriors to fight to the bitter end.
Okay, so imagine the scene. It's pre-dawn darkness. 12,000 men are squeezed into this narrow valley, moving slowly in a really dense column. And then suddenly, the silence absolutely shatters. Arrows rain down from every single direction. The Hawazin unleash their trap from concealed positions high up in the valley walls. The Muslim vanguard gets hit simultaneously from all sides at once. In that sudden, highly compressed chaos, the vanguard just breaks. They turn around, violently colliding right into the thousands of men behind them.
In literally a matter of minutes, this mighty force of 12,000 warriors completely dissolves into a full-blown retreat. It is absolute pandemonium. Men are trampling over one another, horses are rearing up. The Quran actually describes this terrifying moment with really piercing accuracy, stating that the earth was confining for you despite its vastness. So physically they were out in the open, but psychologically, there was nowhere to go. The same massive army that just hours earlier was boasting they could never be defeated by numbers was now running for their lives.
But right in the middle of that shouting, the fleeing, and the total collapse of 12,000 men, there was one. Just one man who absolutely refused to retreat.
The Prophet Muhammad sat absolutely still on his white mule, named Duldul. As his most veteran companions were getting swept up in the frantic retreat, he didn't run. In fact, he did the opposite. He intentionally pressed Duldul forward, straight into the chaos, directly toward those advancing enemy arrows. Holding his ground, he turned to his uncle Abbas. Now, Abbas was famous for having an incredibly powerful voice. The Prophet instructed him to call out, but crucially, not just a generic yell for help. He told Abbas to call out specifically to the Ansar and to the loyal veterans who had previously pledged their lives under the tree at Hudaybiyah.
And as the Prophet pressed forward, he let out this rallying cry over the chaos. I am the Prophet, no lie, I am the son of Abd al-Muttalib. Now this wasn't panic, this was a profound declaration of unwavering certainty, honor, and identity right in the face of total collapse. He was announcing exactly who he was, confirming his prophethood and invoking his honorable lineage to anchor his fleeing men. It was literally a beacon of absolute stability in a sea of complete chaos.
So here is exactly how the tide turned, step by step. First, the Prophet threw a handful of dust toward the enemy, which miraculously struck their faces and temporarily blinded their forward charge. Second, upon hearing Abbas's specific targeted calls, the believers totally snapped out of their panic and rallied back toward the Prophet. Third, a divine tranquility, known as Sakina, descended alongside unseen angels, which completely stabilized the returning army. And finally, step 4, the Hawazin broke. And why? Well, because Malik's earlier strategic blunder of bringing the families to the battlefield became his ultimate downfall. Once the momentum shifted, his warriors couldn't just focus on fighting. They were suddenly burdened with protecting their wives and children right behind them, and their lines just completely shattered.
Now this next part is a true masterclass in strategic patience. Malik ibn Auf retreated to the heavily fortified city of Taif. The Muslims actually lay siege to it for 18 days, dealing with catapults and heated iron being thrown at them. But then, the Prophet does something really surprising. He just leaves. He completely abandons the siege. You see, a companion named Naufal compared Taif to a fox in its hole, meaning if you just wait, it eventually comes out on its own. The Prophet loved that analogy, he withdrew, and incredibly, just months later, the people of Taif sent a delegation and voluntarily submitted to Islam. Not a single drop of blood was shed.
But, stepping back to the immediate aftermath of Hunayn, there was a massive controversy brewing over the spoils of war. The Hawazin had left behind immense wealth. The Prophet distributed massive portions, we're talking like 100 camels and 40 ounces of silver per person, to former enemies and newly converted Meccan leaders like Abu Sufyan. But the Ansar, the incredibly loyal veterans from Medina who had sacrificed absolutely everything for years, they received nothing from the main spoils. Naturally, this caused immense tension. The Ansar felt deeply hurt watching these newcomers walk away with massive wealth, which prompted the Prophet to call a very private gathering with just them.
Inside that private gathering, he delivered what is considered one of the most emotional and beloved speeches in history. First, he validated all of their sacrifices, acknowledging that they had sheltered him when the rest of the world had rejected him. And then he asked them this deeply moving question: "Are you not satisfied that you go back with the messenger of Allah?" He explained that he was only giving the material wealth to reconcile the hearts of the newcomers, but to the Ansar, he was giving his ultimate loyalty and his love. He told them that if everyone else went one way, he would go the way of the Ansar. They wept until their beards were completely wet, deeply and totally satisfied.
And this brilliant outcome perfectly illustrates another key strategy: the incredibly visionary treatment of Malik ibn Auf. Malik was still hiding out in Taif at this point, but the Prophet had already secured his captive family. The Prophet sent Malik a clear message. If he converted, he would get his entire family back, all of his wealth, plus an extra 100 camels. Malik accepted, and the Prophet fulfilled his promise right down to the letter. Through this extreme generosity, the Prophet transformed the very mastermind who had almost destroyed the Muslim army into a highly capable, crucial Muslim leader for years to come.
Section title: Timeless Lessons. 8 Vital Takeaways for the Modern Muslim.
What we've just walked through isn't just a history lesson. It's a literal masterclass in leadership, loyalty, and human psychology. Let's run through the first 4 lessons we can extract directly from the Valley of Hunayn. Number 1, numbers mean nothing without support from a higher power. Remember, 12,000 men ran in minutes because they relied on their math, not their faith. Number 2, vulnerability peaks during material victory. The very moment you think you've made it is exactly when pride blinds you. Number 3, true leadership holds firm in maximum chaos. Just contrast those 12,000 fleeing warriors with the Prophet's unshakable stance on his white mule. And number 4, specific, identity-based calls move people. Abbas didn't just yell out for help. He called out to their specific historical identities and shared commitments, and that is what snapped them out of their panic. And moving on to the final 4 lessons. Number 5, always acknowledge feelings before explaining strategy. The Prophet validated the deep emotional hurt of the Ansar before he ever tried explaining the logic behind the spoils. Number 6, generosity to newcomers is a strategic investment, it's not just charity. Welcoming people with abundance really secures their hearts. Number 7, the mocker today may voluntarily submit tomorrow. Think back to that incredible strategic patience with the siege of Taif. And finally, number 8, capable enemies can become your most powerful allies, exactly like we saw with the genius transformation of Malik ibn Auf.
Which brings us to our final slide, and a really thought-provoking question I want to leave you with today. As you navigate your own life, ask yourself this: when you finally achieve your greatest material success, where will your confidence truly be placed? Because the Battle of Hunayn teaches us that external numbers, wealth, and all those worldly metrics can evaporate in a single ambush. True victory and true stability in the midst of total chaos comes only from a complete, unyielding reliance on a higher power. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and we'll see you next time.